Carmel, this is Noreen. Noreen is one
Hello.
of our followers that's joining us today.
Awesome.
Yay.
Happy
We should have,
Saturday.
yeah, we should have had a couple more, but with the password thing, who knows? So.
And is Cassie on?
She can't figure out the password thing.
Oh, no.
I know. She's using the app on her computer, tried going on in the link, tried going on just opening the app and putting it in the meeting ID.
Yeah, the password worked perfectly for me.
Well, maybe she'll get back on, or we'll see. So who's pick? Oh, this was Cassie's pick too, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Sad.
Well, what was everybody's thoughts of the book?
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. It's funny because I think the book is a really good book to talk about in this environment. It's not one of my favorite all-time books to read, but I think it has a lot of good thought-provoking. It's good conversation. I had a hard time, what kept me engaged the most was I needed to understand what happened to Rachel. This disappearance. I was like, where the heck did she go? And I really wanted to hear that. And then I was really disappointed with the direction that the author took her, to be honest.
Okay, so I am kind of a nosy person. And
Yeah.
I was engaged just because I feel like I'm old. So I don't know anything about these apps except for my young
yeah.
I don't have very many younger people in my life anymore that do these types of things. So I was really felt like I got to see this lifestyle, and I was so intrigued by it.
Yeah, some of it was just a little too much. Those parts bored me a little bit. I think, it got a little risque. I thought some of it was unnecessary, but I did, the thing that kept me going was I needed to understand the Rachel dynamic. And I felt like we would get to this place where she would get to tell her story in a way. So that part was, I think, intriguing.
Yeah, I felt like it started out, the first part of it, you thought you were reading this book about marriage, and then when it got to the end of her part, it's all of a sudden it was whoa, this is about so much more than
Yeah.
marriage. And
Yeah.
kind of brought it all around. And actually, I didn't love the beginning of the book. It was a struggle to get through it, to be honest. And my thing is, I have a lot of single friends. So, I'm are they just not telling me that that's what
I know. You just walk down the street and people throw themselves at you it's I didn't know that either. Okay, so how did you guys feel? Because I know Cassie and I had a little bit of conversation, and then we had to stop ourselves because we were going to talk about it today. But she felt it was really the author was taking this really strong feminist position in the book. I felt the opposite. I felt the complete opposite. I thought that it was kind of a cop out. We should tell anybody watching that we're going to give some major spoilers, right? I thought the fact that she had a fling with that guy was so cliche, and then that broke her down, and she just kind of, because up until that point, I was perceiving her as this really strong, really career oriented, no apologies, kind of. And then all of a sudden it was oh, this guy just isn't into me, so now I'm going to have this total meltdown and leave my kids and cut my hair and sit outside of coffee shops. I don't know. I was just what just happened to her? You know what I mean?
Yeah, she got shortchanged. We don't really know what happened to her. I thought it was going to be I thought it was going to end up being did he murder her? Is that why he's in trouble? Or
I was waiting for that. Where the crap did hit the title of the book come? I was waiting for the murder or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they were referring to her. I don't.
Yeah, I think I took it as at the end, I took it the title to mean that she's in trouble, not he was in trouble. I feel and that's why the whole affair I didn't have those feelings about the affair, because I felt her actual break happened before that.
Yeah.
So to me, like that whole part of her story was all like a psychological meltdown that she was having, and then like culminated with her really like losing it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It told a lot about how he got to where they are, but it didn't tell very much about how she got to that point. So yeah. I think he kind of wanted a pity party about him. He's kind of a martyr, and
Yes.
And
Oh
he's
my
so
gosh.
short. If I have to read how short he is another time, I'm like, good gracious, I have small boobs. So what? Who cares?
Honestly, yeah, that was a little bit, yeah. Yeah, there was definitely a pity party. How I feel like there was some kind of like insinuation that he was like going the extra mile and this proud involved father, and kind of there was this because she wasn't as involved and she was more engaged with career, that it was almost like he was more heroic and she was really selfish. Did you guys get that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't feel like that, but I feel like that was sort of the narrative. Like
Yeah.
his part of it was like he was very much acting like he was some kind of a victim of his marriage.
Yeah.
He
I had to come
willingly
home
signed
every
up
day at 5 and take care of the kids so she could pursue her career, which like I think that that resonates with me, and I probably read really into that part because I'm the working parent and Rich stays at home. And when Ravi was little, I mean, besides the guilt of like you miss out on some of the little things as a mom, but I remember people always like celebrating Rich as if he was like walked on water every time he showed up with Ravi to a park. And I'm like, the heck, he's just a freaking dad doing his job,
Yeah.
like we don't get celebrated when we walk our kid around the block, but people would just like fawn all over him. And I'm like, so I totally got, when I was reading this book, I was so defensive every time he took that position.
Yeah. It's interesting that it's still that way. I mean,
It's so silly. Yeah.
I had a little bit of a hard time relating to that, but I think it was maybe like where they lived, where it took place in the U.S. Like I live in the Midwest, and so the work-life balance is like, I mean, way different than some of my friends that live in New York, And so I don't know. I think I have, as far as like how a family functions, I can't really see like one parent not coming home until like having an 8 to 5, but it's really like an 8 to 8 or something. I don't know. It's hard for me to see that lifestyle. So I think I just had a little bit of a hard time understanding that dynamic in general.
Or the fact that a doctor's not like a reputable job.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess in Manhattan.
I don't know. That was interesting for me.
I mean, the way he wrote about his own job.
Cassie's on.
Yeah, she's trying to get it figured out. She can't get the audio figured out.
Oh man, the audio was for the first couple minutes. My audio wasn't working either.
Yeah, well, my audio was working, but my video wasn't. So I had to restart my computer, and then everything was fine again.
Yeah.
But what was I saying about? Oh yeah, about his job, and it seemed almost like he was like the way it was looked at was almost like it was just like a volunteer position, not
totally. Like you're just a doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. There was a lot of things in this particular story that I couldn't relate to. Honestly, couldn't relate to really any of the characters and their life, as well as like their thoughts on marriage.
Yeah. What was the friend's name? Was it Libby?
Elizabeth, yeah, Libby.
Libby? Okay, I could not relate to her whatsoever. Like she just was in this wonderful marriage, had a great family, but just couldn't be happy. And I'm like, what's her gig?
I think they were trying to mirror Rachel through Libby, kind of, because she kind of understood her and she was coming from where the wife was coming from. They didn't represent women very well in this book.
You guys hear me now?
Hi, Cass!
Whoop,
whoop, welcome to the party!
I don't know what my husband did, but
Good
I
job.
tried everything. I tried the password from my phone. I tried it here, and I was not getting in. So I don't know what he ended up doing, but I'm here.
Awesome.
And it was killing me listening to you guys like, oh.
So what do you think about everything we've said?
I haven't heard any of it because he just got me in that like 3 minutes ago, but then I couldn't get my microphone working. So I only heard the part about Libby and Tracy saying that she didn't relate to her at all, and I was like, I related to her 100%.
Okay, so tell us, I was telling them you and I kind of have talked about this, but we had to like stop ourselves because we wanted to save. Yeah.
Oh wait, really fast, Cassie. It's Noreen. Is that my name? Okay.
Yep.
Hi, Noreen.
Hi.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
What do you want? You want me to talk?
Yeah. About what you
about how I related. So I just related to her because I am very much in the same boat where I feel unfulfilled in job and career, yet I have a very supportive husband who would let me do whatever I wanted to do, but I still feel very unsettled a lot of the time. So that really resonated with me. And I feel like too, looking back on who she was and where she is right now, like I look back on who was back when I was in college or whatever, and I had all these ambitions and like I put all that aside, had kids, and now I'm just in this like, I guess sort of similar place that she's in, like I want more from life, but
Interesting.
So that's where I come from with Libby.
I guess that's what makes it maybe easier for Libby to tell Rachel's story too, because that would be the alternative to her life, right? Like had she pursued,
well, and I think that's why, like when you and I talked about it, I said I thought it was a really feminist novel, and I guess because of those reasons, like but I mean, I don't feel like I'm being stifled by any man. I think it's sort of like feminist in the way that we put a lot of that pressure on ourselves, and I feel like with Rachel, it was very much that way. It was not that Toby was putting pressure on her. She was very much putting all that pressure on herself.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's kind of depressing then though, right? Because it's like, basically, you don't get to win. Like, neither one, you know what I mean? It wasn't like either character really was winning at life. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, nobody in the book, right?
Like that's where we are with our society, though, too. Is
totally.
Like we're kind of set up to not win either way because, I mean, we all know about mom guilt, and you feel guilty if you go to work and you miss out on the things that your kids are doing that they maybe do with the nanny. But if you stay home, you feel guilty because you're not contributing financially.
Yeah.
And it's very much self-imposed. So I mean, that's for Rachel, it was self-imposed. For me, it's self-imposed.
For Rachel, I feel like it was just, she's a victim of her childhood. So she was trying to do everything in her power not to repeat her childhood.
Totally.
And her husband just didn't understand that or know that. Or, I mean, how could he have not known that though? He knew her, so he should have kind of.
I still didn't hate the husband though. Like I didn't
hate him either, Toby. Oh no, I didn't hate him at all.
I was like, I mean, he was quirky, but like he'd be a catch to like, I don't know. I didn't hate him.
I didn't either. I think he just, he was well intended. He definitely started off well intended, and just, being in that marriage was toxic for both of them, I think. So.
Do you ever get? Oh, go ahead.
I didn't love him. I didn't like. I mean, I didn't hate him, but I didn't like him. I just felt like he only ever saw everything from his own point of view. Just even when she was talking about how he would complain to her about the way his mom was with her, and he just had no like self-awareness to even understand how that conversation might have affected her, having grown up without her parents. So I don't know, he just felt so self-involved and so self-loathing that I couldn't with him.
Didn't at one point Libby say that to him? Like, it always comes back to you.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
everything is always about you. You know what I mean? And he was like, what?
Yes. Because she was totally
Yeah.
struggling. And it's like trying to talk to him about her struggles. Yeah.
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 I still kept coming out of it though, like thinking that if they had an open communication, like years and years ago, like if they actually discussed how they were feeling, maybe it would have worked out. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of relationships and in theirs, you sort of set things up from the beginning to like how they're going to play out, like what you allow from the other person. Once you start allowing those things, that just snowballs. And I think that they both allowed so much from each other and didn't communicate what they really wanted, that it just took a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely think too, it was, you know, people, you always kind of read it this way, but I've not seen a story yet where couples go to therapy before things start to erupt. You know, I mean, I feel like she could have definitely used therapy herself long before, you know, couples therapy. But I do think that, like you said, the communication between the two of them was definitely broken. And really right from the beginning of their dating relationship, they almost seemed like not fully themselves. I mean, which everybody, you know, in the beginning, you know, you kind of try to be, you know, possible, hide you're crazy, but eventually it comes out. I don't know, like they didn't seem, honestly, like she seemed more aware of who he was than he seemed aware of who she was. So
I think though, going back to him being so self-loathing and unaware of who he was and unable to get out of himself, like, you know, I mean, you've all heard you can't love anybody until you love yourself. And so I feel like with him, that played a big role into it. He wasn't able to give himself completely or love somebody completely because he didn't even really love himself.
Yeah,
he could have used therapy a long time ago.
Yeah.
I feel like a part of his issue with her working so much too was like an underlying resentment and jealousy of her success.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was almost more than just, oh, you're not here for the kids. It was like, that's the dagger I can use and say out loud and feel justified, then actually say how I really feel, which is I'm jealous because you're doing so much better than me. And I think there's still a lot of men that struggle if the wife is the breadwinner, which is ridiculous, but true.
It's so true. But I can't remember who brought it up, but maybe it was like Rachel during one of their fights. She was like, you complain about it, but you love all the things. You love the car, you love the second house, you love the lifestyle.
Yes.
We wouldn't have that if I didn't work my butt off all day long. You know what I mean? And then you complain about it. Like, you got to decide what you want.
Yeah.
He didn't really give her any room for flaws because he kept calling her his golden, his what did his mom say? One of them had to be the leader or the champion of the relationship. He didn't really give her much room, so I think he kind of set her up for failure because it didn't matter what she did. She was going to be at fault because she couldn't live up to that golden that he kept calling her. And he didn't really get to know her. Like you said, he just had this idea of her, and she had to just kind of fit into his life where it's kind of like if you talk to if you date someone online or something, before you meet them, you have all these preconceived notions about who they're going to be. And then in life, they're obviously not going to be that person, but it's like she had to live to some kind of idea of what he wanted her to be, and she couldn't have any. It didn't matter what she did, she was not going to be everything because nobody can.
Well, and like going back to that point where he had kind of set up for her what he wanted and what he expected, and if you go back to the beginning of the relationship, he says that she's like the first person who actually really gave him the time of day and seemed to like him for him, and to him that was enough to make him want to marry her. Like that was the first person, you know what I mean? It's like, would he really have married her if he had loved himself enough to know that other people could love him too?
Yeah, it was almost like, you know, while he's going through this like single separated period, kind of like sowing his wild oats that he never sowed before.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I don't know, like that part, just his part of the book really was tough for me to get through. Just
like 80% of it.
yeah. So, but you know, I just thought some of that just seemed, again, like sort of just like an underlying resentment of the way his life had turned out. It was almost like he blamed her for having not, you know, done things in his youth, but I don't know.
I agree with you, Carmel. I think there is a lot of resentment. Like maybe he, you know, because he talks a lot in the beginning about like being a doctor and how that's not thought of the way it used to be, and he's so selfless and, you know, such a good person, and I have this great bedside manner, and it's almost like he wanted the recognition for that and didn't get it, and because she, you know, had the successful career, was ambitious, it was like this jealousy that turns into just like resentment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it was funny because when he got passed up for that promotion, that he was like, "Oh, it's in the bag. Like I'm getting this promotion." And then, and I really like, I mean, like I said, I kind of liked him enough. Like I sympathize with him enough, but it's still at that moment, you're like, yeah, well, it's because you've been such a douche lately.
Seriously, right?
Yeah.
Why did he have to fire the nanny? It's not like it's her fault. Yeah, maybe she should have been watching the kid, but if it's down to one parent being there, firing the nanny wasn't really a good idea. He was trying to like take control of everything that's going on around him, but he had no control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was another.
He was more of a power move.
The wife.
I do feel though, like, I wonder from a male's perspective, like if your wife is the breadwinner, like from Toby's perspective, like how hard would that be to like, I don't know, feel like it's thrown in your face all the time. Like she pays for things. She like, I know that most of everybody didn't like him, but I don't know, like even as the opposite, as the female in our household, like my husband is the breadwinner in our family, and I still like feel a little bit of that, like,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like so I don't know. So in the roles that are more defined traditionally, as much as we want to say they're not, like that had to be hard, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, especially for men who, you know, there's culturally kind of these expectations. I think it is really hard. Like I know Rich and I have had this conversation before where it's like, you know, you feel like you're not contributing, you know, even though like raising a kid and being a full-time parent is like, you know, much harder. I think that there's still this idea that like I'm not contributing, I have to ask permission to spend money. You know what I mean? That type of like, I'm sure isn't super good for anybody's ego, let alone somebody who traditionally would be the breadwinner, right?
Right. And I think culturally, especially around here, it's not common to see the man taking the kids to the parent-teacher conferences, and you know what I mean? So they like to be constantly asked about it or talked about it, or like, I don't know. I can just see how that would just be grating after a while.
I think so I had told Tracy this, I had a friend, well, I still have this friend, and he's a stay-at-home dad, and he was when the kids were younger, and I met him because our kids went to camp together, and I started inviting him, because our kids hung out together, I started inviting him and his kids over to play, and he told me once that like nobody ever really talked to him, and nobody ever like invited his kids to play because he was a dad. And so I feel like as a stay-at-home dad, even though, I mean, I feel like, yes, you're contributing and you're doing all these wonderful things, and I feel like there's so much more isolation that comes with that than comes with being a stay-at-home mom.
Agree. Yeah, Rich was always like, when Robbie was little especially, he never felt comfortable approaching women with kids. Just, you know what I mean? Because he's like, it's weird. Like, hey, you want to come over?
You know? Right, yeah.
You know, so he was always just kind of like solo, unless there was another dad, which sucked.
Yeah. I guess I can see that. I never really, I mean, obviously I'm a woman, so I just hadn't considered that perspective. So I'm sure that is tough to
But let's be like, Toby was not a stay-at-home dad.
No,
He
I
was
was
a
gonna say that,
doctor.
no.
He was proud of what
Yeah.
he did, to it, like almost on a pedestal, like, you know,
Right.
and everybody else was, you know, wrong for not recognizing how admirable he was. I guess I didn't really like Toby now. I'm like, here's, you know, but yeah, I think I still wish that we got more of Rachel's story. I feel like I missed out on her. I'm not happy with the direction they took her. I wish they had given her more credit.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
but I think because it's told from Libby's perspective, she didn't have that, and I did like that it was told from Libby's perspective.
Yeah, that was interesting. And I kept wondering why it was told. I thought that Libby was going to end up with Toby, is why I thought she was the one telling
Oh
this.
no, she doesn't like him enough.
That's what I was expecting too, though.
I thought so too.
Oh no, I totally was like, oh no way, because she didn't like him enough. Like you would see that she'd be annoyed where he was, you know, didn't appreciate who she was enough, and like she said, always came back to him, and I didn't.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
got the fact that she like secretly loved him during those moments that she was annoyed.
Yeah.
That's what I read into that.
I felt like she loved him more like a brother, though.
Mm.
I will have to say I was dissatisfied with Rachel's like little. I felt like her story was just thrown in at the end in a couple chapters, and it was like not enough to be interesting, but like needed to be there because otherwise, like, what's the book about? I don't know. I wasn't overly happy with how it felt like we took like 80% of the book to tell Toby's story, and then we got 20% at the end that was trying to wrap it all up, and I just was kind of like over it.
Yeah.
I was really so disappointed in the fact that she actually had the affair too, like that Toby saw coming. I was like, no way, no way. He's just reading into this because he's insecure. And so the fact that she actually had that affair that he thought she was having, I was like, no.
And with the type of person too, like that guy was so, forgive me, but so douchey. And I'm like, really? Like it just all felt so like predictive, you know, like she had an affair, the guy's douchey. And it like my perspective was that was like at least the breaking point or the trigger that sent her. Maybe she was kind of headed there, but I was just like, okay, this feels, I don't know. I would have wanted her to like be a little bit stronger and a little bit more introspective. So I just didn't get that part, and I didn't get although I will say I absolutely loved the writing with that beef lo mein. And when you kept reading it over and over again, and I was like,
I kept having to go back. I was like, wait a minute,
same.
Yeah.
Like, am I going crazy? Did I just read this exact? And it was the exact same. And then after like the third time, I was like, oh, I love this.
You realize what's going on.
Yeah, that part was really good.
Yeah. I loved that part because it really showed that like she was really going through something.
Totally.
Yeah.
And how she kept saying, I'll call my kids when I get some sleep. And then it was just like months were going by, and she was just in her brain like, I'll get there. I'm going to get there, you know, which made me really sad for her.
And he just didn't care. Like even when Libby told him, he was just like, he acts like he's so loving, and he probably is, and it probably is a cultural thing. I grew up in LA. I live in Minnesota now, but I grew up in LA. And so I went to school with guys like him. And of course he's gonna act like a loving dad, because he grew up seeing that. He grew up knowing that, even if he thought his mom was judging him or whatever, made him go to fat camp or whatever it was. He inherently knew how to be a loving dad, and he couldn't even see that. How could she know if she didn't have that? She literally had the opposite of it with her grandma. So I feel like my train of thought just went away, but I feel like, yes, he was a loving dad. He could have been a better husband.
Totally.
But he worked too, and they had a nanny. And even if he tried to get home, he kind of understood like, yeah, he has to get home because his wife is working it's like two different jobs too. So I think he just got a little more credit than he deserved. Like, yes, he was a loving dad because he grew up with it. He knew how to do it. Why wasn't he a better husband? You know, why didn't he understand her more? Why didn't he? And he didn't really love himself. So that's true. So maybe that's why he wasn't loving to her.
I mean, I think that the fact that he couldn't love himself is what really makes him incapable of loving her. And I found, like, going back to his family, that it was really sad when we do see Rachel's inside of kind of her thinking, the part where she's talking about meeting his family and how that's like one of the things that really draws her to him, because she's like, wow, look at this family. Like, I've never had this, and this is what I want.
Yeah.
And that made me so sad for her.
I agree with you. When they start, like, when she started writing about, you know, seeing the family together and the dynamic and just the bickering and how she loved it, like, that melted my heart.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
I wish they had talked or gone a little bit deeper on her whole birth story. Like, clearly there was a trauma there, but I felt it was fully explained. And then also that whole situation that happened with her old boss, I feel like that didn't really get as much attention. And clearly those two events really affected her.
Right.
Yeah. I think the birth, the basic thing about the birth was that she felt so violated by what happened to her, in that, you know, that's what made her go to the rape support group, even though it wasn't rape. She just felt very violated by a man.
Yeah, I wanted to understand that more. I had a hard time understanding her emotional response to that. I felt like I wanted to explore that a little bit more. And I also wanted to understand, so that when she didn't make partner because she was pregnant, I wanted to explore that a little bit more, because that was just a really quick boom. You like rushed through it, and it's because he had, I was trying to understand where she was coming from and her anger in response to that, because I'm sure there was something there, but I don't feel like I got enough backstory with her and the other guy, or the, you know, the partner and their history together. So yeah.
Well, it said that her boss made a move on her and she rejected him, right? So
right. And that was his revenge.
Yeah.
And then her husband, you know, she finally tells him, you know, after this incident happens, and his response to it was like, I don't know.
He knows me.
Yes, it's about him.
To someone you know.
Oh my gosh.
Totally.
Yeah. That really, like, for me, that was like a defining moment for Toby.
Yeah.
Like, I can't anymore with him.
Yeah.
I think, like what you guys have already said, like Toby couldn't get outside of his own head. And he was like that since the beginning, and he needs to go to therapy on his own to be able to be an empath a little bit more.
Yeah, he was so, I agree with you, Carmel, like he's so, like, almost like narcissistic, you know what I mean? Like, this assumption that who was this little intern? What was her name? Not Nadine, but
oh yes.
And he's like, she wants me, you know, and then he's like, yeah, I'm gonna, okay, all right. And she's like, yeah, no, that's not at all where I'm at. You know, I loved that part too, because part of me was like, ew, are they really gonna make them be together? So
yeah, I loved that they had her like be like, no, that's actually not what's going on here
at all.
Yeah. Which also, I think, also as a reader was validating to me, who really wasn't a fan of Toby. It felt validating, like he really is really all in his head and all about himself. It's a weird dynamic with him, because he is not super confident in who he is. But then also,
I think that's where it comes from. That's because, you know, with growing up and having his mom always kind of like telling him that he should do exercise, do this, be better. I think that's where all of that comes from. He doesn't love himself, like I said, and his reaction to that is to act the opposite way, basically.
Or to try to prove something to himself, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and both of his friends even said, you don't really know us. You don't ask about, have you ever asked us how we're doing? Have you ever asked us what's happening in our lives? It's always about you.
Well, and you even see it with there's a ton of people like that, though.
True.
You see it with his kids too. Like, we all said he's a great father and he's doing all these things for his kids. Yeah, he's doing these things for his kids, but he doesn't really he's not really very communicative with them either. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get that from him. I felt like he was doing the duties of a parent, but he wasn't, I don't know, wasn't getting down and dirty with them and having a little more fun, and it's more like going through the motions of being a parent.
Yeah, he related to his son because his son was not like the other kids, so he kind of felt like he was like his son, but he kept labeling his daughter just like her mother, just like her mother.
But he wasn't really getting to know her either, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was an interesting book. It was good. It was good to think about it afterwards.
For sure.
Did you guys notice when Rachel was going through her breakdown, how she went back to the place that she loved most or felt comfortable most or felt like herself, like the place in LA, and then she went back and then that didn't work, and then she went back to her grandma's and that didn't work, and then she came back home and she just couldn't feel like herself again. Like she couldn't find comfort in anything. She was awake for forever,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so the very, very end, does she show up at Toby's house, or was that just Libby kind of narrating her own happy end? Do you?
I think she does, and I think it was left like that. Like I think the author was also leaving room to create another story. Or leaving it so that the reader could decide what happened to them.
So what do you guys think happened? I'm so disappointed. I want Rachel to have a better story.
I wanted Rachel to never go back there because I wanted her to be stronger and more confident, and I wanted her to go back to her job and just kill it because she was so good at it.
This is what you and I talked about, Cassie. I was so disappointed because I felt like this is an opportunity to kind of tell the other side of the story where, as a woman, you can have, you can have more. You can have a good job. You can be a good parent. You can be a strong woman. You can, do all these things. You don't need this short guy. I wanted her to stay wherever they were. I wanted her to stay where she was on that island, let that guy leave, center herself, get right, go back and kick ass. You know what I mean? And not eat 17 different packs of beef lo mein. I really wanted her to have a happy ending, and I don't feel like she got that.
Well, yeah, and in my ideal world, she would go out and do all those things and be very independent, and Toby would be watching with regret.
and envy, right? And be all pissed off at her still, because he's not living the life in his brain made up. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't love the ending. I didn't love that she was the one coming back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't love, obviously, that we were just kind of left with this cliffhanger of, well, what now? What's going to happen next? But I definitely just did not, the vibe of her actually being the one to come back, I didn't love. After having read her story, and I don't know. I just feel like they didn't do her story very well.
Same. I'm so offended. I remember right after I kind of wish we would have zoomed early, right after I read it, because I was really fired up and I was DMing Cassie, what the heck? Because I felt like they totally wrote her wrong. I think that there's a dynamic there with him and all the credit he was giving himself for being a dad that as a woman, if you did that, could you Could you
Oh my
imagine?
gosh. I mean, that's like my life, but I don't work as much as he did. If I just went around like, yep.
Took the kid to the park today. Look at me. And it's like,
Exactly.
yeah. Good for you. Fed my kid breakfast. Winning. Yeah. It's like,
Maybe she loved him though. Maybe they were going back to counseling, together. Because there was something there at the beginning. I don't know. I just didn't hate him as much as you guys all did.
No, I didn't hate him either. I'm with you on that. I see both sides, but I'm definitely with you on not hating him.
Yeah. I just come back to the communication thing, and I don't know. I think about like the it's a choice to work on love and to staying in love. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I lost those butterfly feelings 20 years ago, and so it's like this choice.
Well, my husband just walked by. Did you not just see him? He just walked by, and then the butterflies were like, woo!
And so I don't know. I just think maybe they lost it earlier because they never started working on it. But maybe if they could, work on it together, come back to it.
I was listening to Brene Brown's podcast. You guys listen to that ever?
Yes, of course I do.
Of course you do. And so did you listen to the one with Alicia Keys?
Yes.
Okay. So something really resonated with me, and this made me think about my marriage. She talked about like death by 1,000 cuts, right? How it's little things. It's not like 1 or 2 or 3 really big things. It's like these little moments where you compromise and you give up like a little bit of yourself. And so I related that to this, where like you start to see them making these concessions, like where Toby's like, okay, well, you work later. I'll come home at 5 for the kids, but I resent it. Or, you know what I mean? And so it's like when you start these, every little thing that you let kind of slip through, and then all of a sudden it becomes like this big moment where you realize you're on totally different pages. And it kind of seems like that's what happened here, and probably in a lot of marriages that fall apart, right?
Totally.
Yeah. I think also that, the trajectory of her career took off faster than what she was prepared for, and so then it almost was like she still loved what she did, but she didn't know how to delegate responsibility, how to be comfortable allowing her team to really rise to the occasion and take more off of her plate.
Yeah.
And then she also, after having this conversation with her husband, where she's telling him about how she got passed up for this promotion because she's pregnant and her old boss had hit on her. And then he turns that
about him.
And instead of, kind of like feeling that with her and, being sorry with her, he turns it around on her like she had done something wrong. So then now she's in this situation where anything that goes on with her career, it's not like she's going to confide in him. So now she's built this business, and they've got all these ups and downs, and he's created this, valley between them where it's like, you can't really talk to me about your work. And I think that maybe that was why she came back, is because she also wasn't super happy with the amount that she was working, the number of hours that she was, slaving away anymore.
Yeah.
But wasn't really sure how to kind of get out of that. And then really just kind of like doing it on her own completely, even though she was in a relationship with someone. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I sympathize more with her.
Same.
And her story, and, I don't know. I felt like she obviously had a lot. I mean, losing both your parents, that's tough. So I just feel like she had a lot going on, and her story was such a blip of the book. But I did also think that I almost, when I was looking for quotes yesterday to, post on our Instagram account, the one about where Libby's talking about the daughters wearing the like feminist, like female empowerment t-shirts, and how it was just a big lie, and I thought that was like thought-provoking, but also depressing. So I don't know. I thought that was really interesting that was kind of thrown in there, and not like, it was interesting that it was, Libby saying all those things, not Rachel.
Yes, for sure. I think maybe that's why out of all the characters, I sympathized the most with Libby, hearing her story, even though she was really even though she was the narrator, she was a peripheral character in the story.
Yeah.
Talked at all about the friend, like the male friend. What was his name?
Oh God.
Oh gosh. I don't know.
What was his name? Chris?
No, it was something else. Seth? Seth?
Seth.
Seth.
Okay.
Yes, Seth. Seth.
I think Toby wished he was Seth.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
in
Of
his
course.
heart, he
totally.
so wishes
Seth
he
was
was Seth.
tall.
Always. Yeah.
Tall and athletic, and all the women
He gets
loved
all
him.
the girls.
Yeah. Never
Yeah.
gonna get married. And then he was really like
Yeah.
kind of irritated that he was settling down with that younger woman, right? He was like,
Yeah.
it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you could dive into a whole another book about Seth and why he's the way he is, you know.
Totally. Yeah.
It's like 11:58. I don't know what time we're supposed to. Did Ashley add time to it?
I didn't, but they didn't give
Okay.
me a 5-minute warning. Usually they'll give you a 5-minute warning. So maybe they took off the.
Maybe they changed it. Yeah.
I don't know.
They
Or
felt
maybe because
sorry
I
for
joined
us.
late, we got 40 minutes from then.
There you go.
Toby loved talking about all the things that were written on women's shirts, all the little,
Oh, that was so weird.
all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
That's
You guys
funny.
notice that?
I
Her
just-
shirt said that.
I just kind of figured he was like checking out the rack the whole time. Like, that's
Same.
what was going
He
through my
was.
head.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like too, when was this book written? Like recently?
It was only like a year or 2 years ago, I think.
Well, because I
Because
feel
I had maybe last year, because I got the hardcover in the fall when we talked about it, and it wasn't out in paperback yet. So
okay, so I do have a shirt or two, a couple that have writing on it, but I
Oh,
feel
me
like that was more popular maybe 7-8 years ago. Like those were everywhere then. I don't know. It just felt that felt a little dated or something to me.
that might be the author's personal style.
I think also it's like showing how jaded Toby is against women, because he's always talking about their appearance or what they're wearing or their own personal attitude about themselves. He's just super jaded. So
yeah, it's like, what kind of woman does he actually want is my question. Because here he is, like the stay-at-home moms who are showing up to yoga with their spiritual gangster t-shirts. He's like talking about them like they're, terrible. Like doesn't like those women. And then his wife, who is, working and doing all the things. I don't know. Like I don't like he.
Well, and there was the lady that he had the affair, like not the affair, because they were
Nadine.
Of course, Nadine. And it was funny because it was like he seemed like maybe he really liked her, but as soon as she gave him what he wanted, he was like, nope.
Yeah, no thanks. Oh, you want to go out in public with me? Bye. Yeah.
Forget it now. I don't want that anymore. I wanted it on my terms, but not on your terms.
He was a mess. He was a total mess.
Yeah, he really does need to figure himself out, is what it comes down to. Because it's truly, like you said, you can't be happy with someone else if you're not happy with yourself. So.
All right, what does everybody give it as a rating overall? Would you recommend it to a friend?
I would, so I could discuss it more.
Agree. Yeah, agree. It's definitely a good discussion book.
Yeah.
I give it like a 3.5. How many stars out of how many? 5?
Out of 5? Yeah, I was thinking the same.
3.5
here.
Yeah.
I'd say 3.5 too.
Yeah.
Because I did like it. I mean, in the sense that I wanted to keep reading, even though the first part was tough to get through. And I did want to find out what happened with all the characters, and it is super thought-provoking and definitely makes you want to talk to somebody about it.
Yes, for sure.
I don't know if I'd recommend it, but I enjoyed it after I got through the first 100 pages or so, for sure.
As soon as I realized Rachel would have her part, then I wanted to read just to learn more about her. That's what kept me going.
Yeah, that same here. Like once I got to her, like, ooh, and I had already gotten more into it once we learned a little bit more about Libby. But when Rachel started, for sure, I was much more in.
It also was one of those books that was super surprising to me because nothing really played out the way I thought it would. And maybe I've read too many like books that have some crime type stuff into it because, like Noreen said, I thought for sure it was going to be like he killed her.
Buried her camp. Outside the kids can't go.
Accidentally killed her on accident. Like I thought for sure it was going to be something.
I love it.
That. And that's what I
just blocked it from his memory, right? So he has no idea. She's
I was
actually dead in his closet.
I was actually kind of disappointed when that didn't happen.
I was like, oh, this is what this is.
Well, especially like given the title, you know, you kind of assume that something like that could happen. But I think it was given the title because, you know, they're both Fleishman, really. So
Yeah.
I never even thought that the title would have came from her last name. Like I was always like reading the title as from him, and I was like, what's gonna happen? I don't get it. Like what?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so next month is a much lighter read.
Have we all got it? Did everybody?
Yet.
You still haven't.
No. I don't.
Did you message Kristen?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that when we get off the call.
I would message her directly. Yeah.